My brother burned my scholarship papers the night before my flight to join medical school abroad. Street rats don't deserve classrooms, he laughed. My parents agreed, your place is washing our dishes, not sitting with doctors. I didn't cry. I picked up my bag and smiled. At 6 a.m., my father's phone rang from the airport. The scholarship letter caught fire from the bottom left corner. The flame climbed the margin, curled through the Royal College of Surgeons letterhead, and ate the paragraph that began with, "We are pleased to offer you a full scholarship," before reaching the line that said my name. Jonah Coulter. The letters turned orange, then black, then nothing. The ash floated above the stove burner and settled on the counter next to a stack of unpaid utility bills that I had been covering since I was 18. My brother Cade held the burning page by the top corner with 2 fingers, tilting it so the flame moved faster. He was smiling, not the quick grin of someone pulling a prank. The wide, satisfied expression of someone who has been waiting to do this since the acceptance letter arrived 6 months ago and finally decided tonight was the night. The night before my flight. He dropped the last burning edge into the sink. It hissed against the wet steel. Then he reached for the second document, the scholarship financial summary, and lit that too. Then the housing confirmation. Then the enrollment checklist. 4 pages. 4 separate futures. All of them ash in under 2 minutes. My father stood by the refrigerator with his arms crossed. My mother sat at the kitchen table with her hands folded in front of her, the way she sits when she has already made up her mind and is waiting for everyone else to arrive at the same conclusion. Cade shook the last ash off his fingers and looked at me. He was leaning against the counter with one elbow on the edge, his body arranged in the posture of someone who has just completed a task he considers productive. "Street rats don't deserve classrooms," he said. He did not whisper it. He said it the way you read a verdict. Loud enough for the kitchen walls to hold it. Loud enough for the neighbor's dog to pause barking for a moment on the other side of the fence. If you are new here, welcome to Family Secret Tales. That line is where most people would start yelling. I did not yell. Cade was not finished. He pushed off the counter and stepped closer. "You spent your whole life running from this house to the library like a street rat, Jonah. Now you want to run all the way to Dublin. You push pills across a counter for $17 an hour, and you think you belong in a lecture hall with real doctors? Mom and Dad fed you, clothed you, kept a roof over your head for 23 years, and you repaid them by treating this family like a bus stop on the way to somewhere better. You are a counter boy with a plane ticket. That is all you have ever been." My father looked at me across the kitchen. His chin lifted the way it does when he is about to deliver something he has been turning over in his mind for weeks. "Your place is washing our dishes, not sitting with doctors. You want to fly somewhere? Fly to the grocery store and pick up what your mother needs." Patrice added, without raising her eyes from her folded hands, "That scholarship money should be going to this house, not to you." "The scholarship does not pay cash," I said. "It covers tuition and housing in Dublin. There is no money to send here." "Then what good is it?" Lyle said. "It is a medical degree." "A medical degree," Cade repeated, loading the words with the same tone he uses when he describes something he saw on television that he considers ridiculous. "From a country you cannot find on a map. I can find it on a map. Then find yourself a bus ticket home when it falls apart. Because it will." Cade pointed at the sink. "That is where your scholarship is. Right next to your library card and your little hospital badge and every other thing you collected thinking it made you better than this house. In the drain." I stood in the doorway of the kitchen and looked at the sink where 4 documents were dissolving into gray pulp. I looked at Cade, who was smiling with his whole face now. I looked at my father, who believed what he said because he had repeated it enough times to make it feel like truth. I looked at my mother, who had never once attended a parent-teacher conference, a science fair, a pharmacy school information night, or any event that acknowledged I was building something outside this kitchen. I picked up my bag from the hallway floor. The bag was already packed. It had been packed for 2 days. I smiled. Not a performance. A release. The kind of smile that arrives when you realize the people you spent 5 years trying to earn approval from have just given you the clearest permission you have ever received to stop trying. I walked to my bedroom. I closed the door. I sat on the edge of my bed and opened my phone. The first thing I checked was my email. The RCSI enrollment confirmation was in my inbox, timestamped 6 weeks ago. The digital copies of every document Kate had just burned were in a secure folder on the hospital server, uploaded through the same system I use to archive medication orders on the night shift. Kate burned paper. The enrollment was digital. Every document he held over that stove had been uploaded to RCSI's secure portal 6 weeks ago through the same system I use to archive medication records at the hospital. He destroyed printouts. The acceptance lived in a server 3,000 miles away. Untouched, I did not sleep that night. But not because I was grieving, because I had work to do. Here is what you need to understand about the Coulter household before the rest of this makes sense. I have been a certified pharmacy technician at Memorial General Hospital since I was 18 years old. Night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I process medication orders, run sterile compound preparations, verify dosage calculations, and manage the controlled substance log for a 340-bed hospital. I have done this 5 nights a week for 5 years. On my breaks, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., I studied for the MCAT in the staff lounge with a highlighter and a secondhand prep book I bought for $11 at a used bookstore. I scored in the 97th percentile. Nobody in my family asked what the MCAT was. For 5 years, 60% of my take-home pay has gone to this household. $3,400 a month. Rent, $1,100. Utilities, $340. Groceries, $480. The rest went into what Lyle called household expenses, a catch-all category he managed and nobody questioned, because questioning it would mean admitting the system was designed to keep me paying without knowing what my money was buying. The roof over their heads existed because of my paychecks. My brother paid nothing. My father collected a partial maintenance pension of $2,100 a month. My mother worked 20 hours a week at a grocery store and came home tired in a way that made her tiredness everyone else's problem. And every month, without fail, someone in this house reminded me where I came from, as if coming from somewhere difficult was proof that I should not be going anywhere better. I spent my childhood at the public library, not because I loved reading, although I did, because there was nothing at home. No help with homework, no books on the shelves, no one asking what I learned that day. Lyle came home from work at 4 and turned on the television. Patrice came home at 6 and started dinner. Cade played video games in the living room until midnight and left his dishes on the coffee table for me to collect in the morning. I sat at a table in the Millbrook Public Library from 3:30 to 7 every weekday for 6 years, doing homework, reading biology textbooks I pulled from the reference shelf, and teaching myself how to study because nobody at 114 Glenmore Road was going to teach me. The librarian, a woman named Mrs. Falk, started leaving a pencil and a ruled notebook at my usual table every afternoon. She never asked me to explain why I was there instead of at home. She just made sure the table was clear and the overhead light worked. I owe more of my education to a public librarian who never asked questions than to any person who shares my last name. The family called this running the streets. Not as a joke. They said it with genuine disapproval. The way you describe a child who is heading in the wrong direction. Lyle once told a neighbor at a backyard barbecue, Jonah is never home. Runs around the neighborhood doing who knows what. I was at the library. I was 13. I was reading about cellular respiration for the 3rd time because the diagram in the reference book was the clearest one I had ever seen. The neighbor looked at me standing in the yard with a plate of potato salad I had served myself and said nothing. Street rats started as Cade's joke when I was 14. I came home from the library one evening and found him in the kitchen eating cereal from the pot because all the bowls were dirty. He looked at me and said, "The street rat returns." He was 17. By the time I was 16, It was not a joke anymore. It was a label. By 23, it was the family's shorthand for everything I am and everything they decided I would stay. I almost quit the library after Cade spray-painted street rat on my bicycle when I was 15. The letters were red and jagged across the rear fender. I rode that bicycle to the library every afternoon for 3 months, with those letters facing every car that passed me. Because I could not afford to repaint it and the paint would not come off with soap. I told myself it did not bother me. It bothered me every single day. But on one of those rides, I stopped at Uncle Eldon's house on Macon Street to fill my water bottle because the library fountain was broken. Eldon was in his driveway, loading copper fittings into his truck for a job. He saw the bicycle. He saw the paint. He did not say anything about it for a long moment. Then he went inside and came back with 2 things: a can of black spray paint and a second-hand copy of Campbell Biology, its spine cracked, and its pages annotated by some college student who had underlined the important parts in pencil. "Cover the letters first," he said, handing me the can. "Then open the book." I painted over the red letters in his driveway that afternoon. He held the bicycle steady while I sprayed. When I was finished, he opened the biology textbook to the inside front cover and showed me what he had written in ballpoint. "You are going to need this more than they think." Eldon is my mother's brother. He installs vac systems for a living and drives a 12-year-old truck and has never once told me what I could not become. He did not lecture me about Cade. He did not call Patrice to complain. He gave me a can of paint and a book and treated both as equally necessary. That textbook is in my bag. It was in my bag when the scholarship letter burned. It is in my bag now. Stay with me on Family Secret Tales. Because the papers were not the only thing my family destroyed under my name. 3 weeks before the flight, a letter from the State Pharmacy Board arrived at 114 Glenmore Road. It was in a standard business envelope, white, with the board seal in the upper left corner. I opened it at the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning after a night shift, while my hands still smelled like nitrile gloves and isopropyl alcohol. The coffee was bitter. The house was quiet. Cade was asleep. Lyle was watching morning television in the living room with the volume low. The letter informed me that unusual ordering activity had been flagged under my CPHT credential number. A secondary wholesale distributor account had been opened 14 months earlier using my license, my name, and my credential number. The account was registered to a P.O. box in Henley County, 1 county north of us. Over 14 months, the account had ordered quantities of hydrocodone and tramadol that did not correspond to any institutional pharmacy I was affiliated with. The board was requesting a written response within 30 days. I am a pharmacy technician. I know what a diversion flag looks like because I have processed 6 of them at Memorial General in the past 3 years. I know the pattern, small orders, regular intervals, quantities just under the threshold that triggers automatic DIA review. Someone who understood the reporting system had designed this account to fly below the radar, not a street-level operation, a calibrated one. I drove to the Henley County Post Office that afternoon before my shift. The building was a single-story brick structure next to a feed supply store. I told the clerk I needed to verify a P.O. box registration for a fraud investigation. She asked for identification. I showed her my pharmacy tech badge and the board's letter. The P.O. box was registered to K. Coulter. She could not give me more information, but she did not need to. The secondary contact phone number on the distributor account, which I had looked up through the board's portal that morning, matched Cade's personal cell. The same number he texts me from when he wants me to bring home gas station coffee after my shift. My brother had been using my pharmacy license to order scheduled medications and resell them for over a year. He was sitting in the living room playing a racing game on the television when I came home. The controller was in both hands. His feet were on the coffee table. He did not look up when I walked through the door. He did not know that the credential number printed on the small laminated card in my wallet, the one he had typed into an online distributor portal 14 months ago, was now the subject of a state investigation that would eventually involve federal agents. I did not confront him. I went to my room, opened my laptop, and began pulling records. 2 weeks before the flight, a credit report appeared on my laptop screen that did not match anything I recognized. My credit score, which was 761 the last time I checked, had dropped to 698. The reason, a $95,000 home equity line of credit, opened 18 months ago, co-signed by Jonah Coulter. A document I never signed. A loan I never saw. A table in a bank I never sat at. I pulled the application. Lyle's signature was on the primary borrower line. My signature was on the co-borrower line. Except it was not my signature. My J has a specific hook at the bottom of the vertical stroke that curls inward. The J on that application did not curl. Someone had practiced my name without understanding the one letter that makes it mine. The $95,000 had been dispersed in a single draw to a contractor named Fulbright Construction. Fulbright's invoice was for a garage conversion at 114 Glenmore Road. Cade's detailing workshop. The one with the air compressor, the buffer, the pressure washer, and the LED lighting. The one that grosses $200 in a good month against 6 figures in debt. The monthly HELOC payment was $1,247. That number had been folded into the household expenses I had been paying for 18 months without knowing which line item was which. My father had forged my signature to borrow against a house I do not own and used the money to build a workshop for a son who has not held a steady job since he dropped out of community college at 19. I almost called Lyle that night. The application was on my screen. His handwriting was on the primary line. My forged name was on the co-borrower line. But I was 2 weeks from a flight that would take me to a different country, a different life, and if I confronted them now, they would spend those 2 weeks finding ways to stop me from leaving. The pharmacy board letter. The HELOC. The burning of the scholarship papers that had not happened yet, but that I could already feel coming the way you feel weather changing. I closed the laptop and went to work. I processed 127 medication orders that night and did not make a single error. 1 week before the flight, I discovered the last piece. Patrice was at the kitchen table on a Saturday morning. Lyle was in the garage. I was making coffee. Patrice's phone was on the table, screen up, and a text notification from Lyle appeared. Did you move the folder with the bank papers? The one I signed for Jonah. She picked up the phone, read it, typed a reply, and put the phone back down without looking at me. She was not surprised by the text. She was not confused by it. She replied the way you reply to a routine question about groceries. She knew. She had been at the table when Lyle practiced my signature. She had watched him sign my name on the HELOC application. She was not an enabler who looked away. She was a participant who stayed seated. I contacted an attorney named Wendell that afternoon. He had an office above a dry cleaner on South Main, the kind of practice that handles estate disputes and small business fraud and the quiet family catastrophes that never make the news. I sat across from his desk with the pharmacy board letter, the credit report, the HELOC application, the distributor account printout, and 18 months of household expense breakdowns. He read them in order, the way I had arranged them. When he finished, he took off his glasses and set them on the desk. How long have you known about the drug diversion? He asked. 3 weeks. And the HELOC? 2 weeks. And you have not confronted anyone? No, why? Because my flight to Dublin is in 7 days, and if I confront them now, they will spend 7 days finding ways to stop me from boarding. Wendell looked at the pharmacy board letter again. The board referral is time-sensitive. We should file the response in the DIA notification now, while the evidence is clean. If we wait and Cade closes the distributor account, the ordering records get harder to pull. File the board referral now. The DIA notification too. Hold everything else until I am in the air. The HELOC fraud? Hold it. The credit bureau dispute? Hold it. And the demand letter to your father? Put it in a folder. I will leave it on the kitchen table the morning I leave. They can read it while I am at the airport. Wendell leaned back in his chair. You want them to find out from a folder on their own table. They burned my scholarship papers at that table. They can read the consequences at the same table. He nodded once. I will have everything ready in 4 days. The night the papers burned, I already knew everything. I stood in the kitchen doorway and watched Cade light a match against a letter that had been confirmed electronically 6 weeks earlier. And I did not stop him, because stopping him would have cost me the one thing I needed more than those pages. Departure. I needed to be on a plane before the family realized that their financial structure, the one built on my paycheck and my forged signature and my stolen credential, was about to be dismantled from a gate at the airport. I picked up my bag. I smiled. I went to my room and waited. At 4:30 a.m., I carried my bag through the dark hallway. The house was silent. Cade's door was closed. My parents' bedroom light was off. I placed a manila folder on the kitchen table. Inside, the pharmacy board audit letter, the distributor account registration showing Cade's phone number, the HELOC application with my forged signature circled, the disbursement record showing the loan proceeds going to Fulbright Construction, the contractor's invoice for the garage conversion, 18 months of household expense breakdowns showing the $1,247 HELOC payment bundled into my contributions, and a single printed page from Wendell summarizing the legal actions already in progress. The front door locked behind me for the last time. The lock turned the way it always turns, smooth and familiar. My bag went into the car. The CPHT certification card was in my wallet, where it has been since I earned it at 18. The small laminated rectangle with my name and credential number and the State Pharmacy Board seal. The first document that ever confirmed I was qualified for anything. The same number Cade typed into a distributor portal to order drugs he sold to a buyer in Henley County. The card was mine. The credential was mine. The seat on the plane was mine. The drive to the airport took 35 minutes, empty roads except for delivery trucks, and a police car parked at a gas station with its lights off. The sky turned from black to dark blue to the gray of early morning. The radio stayed off. The words for the phone call did not need rehearsal. They had been assembling themselves for 2 weeks, verified and checked and confirmed the way medication orders are verified, irreversible, once submitted. The long-term lot was nearly empty. My bag went through the automatic doors, through check-in, through security behind a family with 3 carry-ons and a stroller. Gate C14 was at the end of the terminal. A molded plastic chair between a woman reading a novel and a man asleep with his jacket over his face. The departure board showed my flight, Dublin, 7:15 a.m., on time. 38 minutes until boarding. I opened my phone. I dialed the house number, the number I have known by heart since I was 6 years old. The number I will not dial again after today. It rang 4 times. Lyle picked up. His voice had the thickness of a man who had been awake for less than 10 minutes. I could hear the coffee maker in the background. I could hear a chair scraping the floor. Someone else was awake. "Jonah," he said. "Where the hell are you?" "I am at the airport." "Silence then. What airport?" "The one where planes leave, Dad. My flight boards in 38 minutes. Before I go, I need you to open the folder I left on the kitchen table." I heard paper rustling. I heard Patrice's voice in the background asking what was happening. I heard a chair pull out. More rustling. Then nothing for 12 seconds. 12 seconds is a long time on a phone when the person on the other end is reading a document that changes everything. "This is not what it looks like," Lyle said. The sentence arrived the way it always arrives when documentation lands on a table in front of someone who has been lying. It is exactly what it looks like. Cade used my pharmacy credential to order controlled substances for 14 months. The DIA referral was filed yesterday. Hydrocodone and tramadol through a wholesale account registered to a P.O. box in Henley County under his name and my license number. The State Pharmacy Board has the full audit trail. I heard Cade's voice sharp and close. "What is he talking about?" He was in the kitchen. He was reading the pages. "He is talking about the distributor account you opened using my CPHT number," I said, loud enough for the phone's speaker to carry it to wherever Cade was standing. "The one linked to your personal cell phone. The one that has been ordering scheduled medications for 14 months. That is not mine, Cade said. I could hear the speed of his denial. Too fast. The kind of speed that tells you the person had already rehearsed the sentence in case this day ever arrived. Your phone number is on the account registration. Your name is on the P.O. box. The documentation is in the folder. Silence from Cade. Dad, you forged my signature on a $95,000 home equity loan. The bank has been notified that the co-borrower designation is fraudulent. The HELOC payment of $1,247 a month that you buried in the household bills I have been paying for 18 months, that payment is yours now. Every cent of it. My attorney has the application, the disbursement record, and the contractor invoice. Lyle's breathing changed on the line, short pulls through the nose, the sound of a man whose chest has tightened. Mom, you watched Dad practice my signature at the kitchen table. You saw him sign my name on a bank document. You texted him about the folder where he kept it. You are a witness to fraud, and your text messages are in my attorney's file. I heard Patrice say, Jonah, that is not fair. Her voice was higher than normal. Not denial exactly. The wobble of someone who has been sitting in a chair she thought was solid and has just felt it shift. Fair, I said. You told me the scholarship money should go to this house. I have been sending $3,400 a month to this house for 5 years, $204,000, and you used my name to borrow another $95,000 on top of it without my knowledge. My attorney has filed a police report for the forged co-borrower signature. Whether the DA pursues charges is not my decision. You are right, Mom. It is not fair. Jonah, you cannot just leave, Lyle said. We are your family. You burned my scholarship letter. You called me a street rat. You told me my place was washing dishes. You forged my name on a loan I never signed. And the papers you burned last night were photocopies, Dad. I submitted everything to RCSI digitally 6 weeks ago. My enrollment was confirmed before Cade lit the match. We can work this out, Lyle said. His voice had dropped into the register of a man who is no longer arguing, but negotiating. Come back from the airport. We will sit down. We will sort out the loan. My next paycheck has been redirected to an account at a bank none of you have access to. The $3,400 a month stops today. Every bill in that house is yours, including the $1,247 for a garage that makes $200 on a good month. You are killing us, Cade said in the background. His voice had changed. The laughing, leaning, match lighting voice from 8 hours ago was gone. What was left sounded like a man reading numbers on a page and understanding for the first time what they add up to. You called me a counterboy, Cade, I said. The counterboy is the one who read the pharmacy board audit and traced your distributor account in 4 hours. The counterboy is the one who pulled the credit report and found the forged HELOC in 2 days. The counterboy processed controlled substance logs for 5 years while you sat on the couch and played racing games, and the counterboy is the reason you were about to explain a DEA referral to a federal investigator. You should have paid more attention to what the counterboy does for a living. Silence. The kind of silence that has weight. Cade tried one more thing. His voice shifted into something I had never heard from him before. Smaller, almost reasonable. Jonah, listen. I will shut down the distributor account today. Right now. I will pay back everything on the card. We will figure out the loan. Just come back from the airport. Give us a chance to fix this before it goes to the feds. The board referral and the DEA notification were filed 4 days ago, Cade. There is nothing to shut down. It is already in the system. Another silence. This one longer. My number changes when I land, I said. The next communication from me comes through my attorney. The household bills are your problem now. Every one of them. Including the $1,247 for a loan I never signed. The $3,400 a month I sent to this house for 5 years is finished. There is no payment plan. There is no call I will answer. There is no version of this where I come back to that kitchen and wash your dishes. I almost let the silence stretch long enough for one of them to fill it with something that might have changed the calculus. The gate agent had begun the pre-boarding announcement, her voice flat and professional over the intercom. A child 3 rows ahead was pulling on her mother's sleeve. The world at Gate C14 was continuing the way the world continues when a family implodes on a phone line 40 miles south. But I had stood in that kitchen for 5 years paying their bills and swallowing their insults, and no sound they could make into a phone at 6 in the morning was going to be louder than the sentence I had been waiting 23 years to say. The counter boy is at Gate C14. Dad, the street rat is going to medical school. Do not call this number. I hung up. I turned the phone off. The gate agent called Group B. I stood up, handed her my boarding pass, and walked down the jetway. I put my bag in the overhead bin. Inside it, Eldon's Campbell biology textbook with a note inside the front cover. My wallet with the certification card. The charger for a phone that would have a new number before I cleared Irish customs. I sat in a window seat. The plane pushed back from the gate at 6:48 a.m. I watched the airport shrink, then the highway, then the neighborhoods, then the county where I had spent 23 years being told what I was and what I would remain. Then, it was gone, replaced by the tops of clouds, white and flat and endless, like a page that has not been written on yet. I closed my eyes and slept for the first time in 31 hours. 3 hours after I left, Uncle Eldon arrived at 114 Glenmore Road. I had called him from the gate before I called Lyle. I told him everything. He drove 45 minutes to the house. Eldon told me later what he found. The front door was unlocked. The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee. The manila folder was open on the table, its contents spread across the surface in the order I had placed them. Nobody had reorganized the pages. They were reading them in the sequence I designed, the same way I arrange a controlled substance audit at the hospital, chronologically, with the worst document last. Lyle was sitting in the chair closest to the wall, both hands flat on the table. His fingers were not moving. His eyes were on the HELOC application, specifically on the circled forgery, but Eldon said he was not reading it anymore. He was just looking at a fixed point on the paper the way people look at things when their brain has stopped processing input and is running the same calculation over and over without arriving at a number. His coffee was cold. The mug had a ring of brown condensation around the base where it had been sitting untouched for 2 hours. His phone was on the table, screen dark, the last outgoing call still showing my name. Patrice was standing at the counter with both hands gripping the edge. Her knuckles were white against the laminate. She was facing the stove, where the scholarship letter had burned 8 hours earlier. The sink was directly below her, and the ash from the documents had dried into a gray film on the steel. She was not crying. Eldon said she looked like a woman standing in a room she no longer recognized, trying to locate the version of herself that had sat at this table the night before and said that scholarship money should be going to this house. Cade was not in the kitchen. He was in the garage, sitting on the concrete floor with his back against the workbench and his legs extended. The overhead lights were off. The only light came through the gap under the garage door. He was holding his phone in one hand resting on his thigh, but the screen was dark. The detailing buffer was on the shelf above his head. Unplugged, the air compressor was silent. The garage smelled like motor oil and dust and silence. Eldon sat at the table across from Lyle. He did not raise his voice. He said, "You burned that boy's scholarship letter and told him to wash your dishes. Then, you let your other son use his pharmacy license to sell drugs, and you forged his name on a loan to build a garage that cannot pay for itself. What did you think was going to happen, Lyle?" Lyle did not look up. His hands stayed flat on the table. Patrice did not turn around. Later that afternoon, Patrice called Eldon. I know what was said, because Eldon told me, word for word, in an email he sent 3 days later. "Eldon, your nephew has lost his mind," Patrice said. "He filed some kind of report against Cade, and he is telling the bank that Lyle forged something. He has abandoned this family during the worst moment of our lives. I need you to call him. Tell him to come home. Tell him to at least keep sending the money until we sort this out." Which part would you like me to sort out? Eldon said. The part where Cade used his brother's pharmacy license to sell drugs? Or the part where Lyle forged Jonah's name on a $95,000 loan? That is not what happened. I have the documents, Patrice. Jonah sent them to me before he called you. I have read every page. He is twisting things. He is a pharmacy technician who processes controlled substance audits for a living. He does not need to twist anything. The documentation does the talking. He is my son, and he left without saying goodbye. He is your son, and you told him his place was washing your dishes. The boy earned a scholarship to medical school, and you let his brother burn it at the stove. I have nothing to say to you that will make this smaller than it is. Patrice hung up. Eldon texted her one image, the scanned HELOC application with Lyle's primary signature and the forged co-borrower signature circled in red. No commentary, no follow-up message, just the document. She did not respond. If this story mattered to you, subscribe to Family Secret Tales. Here is what followed. The DIA referral moved through the system in 3 weeks. Federal investigators contacted the wholesale distributor, confirmed the unauthorized account, and traced the orders to the Henley County P.O. Box. Cade's employer, Whitfield Auto Parts, was notified that its warehouse shipping address had appeared on a secondary delivery manifest associated with the investigation. The regional compliance officer arrived on a Wednesday during lunch. Cade was called into the break room. His shift manager stood by the door. 2 co-workers at the vending machine saw Cade walk out with his locker contents in a cardboard box, his swipe badge collected at the exit. Nobody told him to have a good day. One co-worker asked the manager what happened. The manager said he was not allowed to discuss personnel matters. By Thursday morning, everyone at Whitfield knew. The bank called the $95,000 HELOC after receiving the forgery notification. Lyle received a certified demand letter for the full outstanding balance with a 90-day repayment window. 2 weeks later, a second letter arrived from the county DA's office requesting an interview regarding the forged co-borrower signature. Lyle hired a defense attorney. The retainer was $4,500 against a pension that barely covers his monthly bills. His partial pension covers $2,100 a month. The HELOC payment is $247. The remaining household expenses that Jonah used to pay are $1,920. The math does not work. Lyle sat at the kitchen table with a calculator and produced the same impossible number 4 times before putting the calculator in a drawer and closing it. Patrice's grocery store manager called her into the back office after a regular customer mentioned the Coulters situation in the checkout line. Patrice was not fired. She was moved from the front register to the stockroom. Same hours, same pay. But the customers who used to greet her by name now received their change from someone else. At church, the family that usually sat behind the Coulters moved 3 pews forward without comment. Patrice continues to attend. She sits in the same spot. The space behind her stays open. Cade sits on the floor of the garage workshop, the one that cost a forged signature and a 6-figure loan and earns $200 on a good month. The detailing buffer is on the workbench, unplugged. A half-finished customer car has been sitting on the lift for 7 weeks. The owner stopped returning Cade's calls about pickup. The compressor is quiet. The lead strips Lyle bought with the loan money glow above a business that cannot cover its own electricity bill. Cade does not turn the main lights on anymore. He leaves the garage door cracked open so the street light reaches the first few feet of concrete. He sits there some evenings with his back against the workbench, looking at the empty spot in the driveway where my car used to park. The car that took me to the hospital 5 nights a week for 5 years. The car that carried me to the airport at 4:30 and on a morning he slept through. The car that is not coming back to Glenmore Road. I am at a desk in a shared flat in Dublin. It is raining the way it rains here, sideways, without apology. My anatomy textbook is open to the section on the brachial plexus. On the shelf above the desk, Eldon's Campbell Biology sits between a physiology manual and a small box of tea bags a flatmate left as a welcome gift. The spine is cracked. The pencil annotations from some anonymous college student are still there. Eldon's note is still inside the front cover. You are going to need this more than they think. My CPHT certification card is pinned to the corkboard above the desk. My name, my credential number, the state seal. The first document that ever said I was qualified for anything, earned at 18 on the night shift while the family slept and the hospital hummed and I counted pills and ran compounds and learned that precision is a kind of love that does not require anyone's approval. On the wall next to the corkboard is a printed schedule. Monday, 9 a.m., gross anatomy. My first lecture. My name on the roster. A seat in a room full of people who earned their way in, same as me. My phone is on the desk. It has a new number. It does not ring from Glenmore Road. It does not ring from anyone who told me to wash their dishes or called me a street rat or burned a letter with my future on it. The contact list has 14 names. None of them share my last name except Eldon. It does not ring. I prefer it that way.